Press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss another update.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to be here in Mumbai, such a wonderful, vibrant city of art, culture, enterprise and science, and truly one of the great world cities. And it's also humbling to be with so many very distinguished people today who have done and are doing so much to advance the interests of people in Indian society, particularly the children, who of course will make such a difference to the future of this marvelous country. I'm very struck by what an honor it is for me to be able to be with you today, coming from Worcester in England, such a small city. And I did a little bit of arithmetic before I came here. And for every one person who lives in Worcester, there are 200 here in Mumbai alone. So I'm just very conscious that we have so much to learn from you, but I hope that what I have to say over the next few minutes will also be of some interest to you. And so let me introduce my small city and the university that I have the privilege of serving as their Vice Chancellor and Chief Executive to you, and say something about our work in this very important area of inclusive education. And now I'm going to hope that this works. That nobody here needs to know that, but early years education is still a passion for us, and it's still actually a great cause around the world because our little children are so often neglected, and their opportunity to learn when their brains are so alive and plastic and ready to embrace knowledge and the newness of life. We need to do so much more. So the university became interested in early years education, and we're dedicated to working with children. So we're a university which has an annual children's festival of storytelling. There are no students at the university under the age of 18, but all of these people in this picture are attending university events and singing, playing, listening, creating, reading, and engaging, and so important for the future. And also, we became concerned with what is often called special educational needs, and we realized that many children have impairments and difficulties and obstacles in the way of learning and actually also functioning as citizens in society. And so we became very committed to special educational needs, and this is not only true in education, but it's in part of participating in society. And this picture is one of our staff, who is actually an expert psychologist and sports psychologist, working with a young woman with a considerable physical disability, but who is still participating in sport as well as in education, and how important that is. Now, of course, the university in Worcester, starting from being a tiny teacher training college in emergency wartime buildings, two of which we still have. They were built in 1941 with a 10-year life. We recently put a new roof on one of them, and with a 15-year guarantee. So I imagine that it may turn out to be a 100-year life for these buildings. we are well known also for our work with our own students in terms of supporting them, and we have played a role nationally in the United Kingdom in developing an important appreciation of the significance of students having good mental health and being resilient. And so you can see why we are so interested in working with Swaroop here, whom I will come to in a little while, in developing a diploma in personal and social education and in life skills, and in trying to develop that. But just a little bit more about the way in which the university has tried to develop facility with this idea of celebrating inclusion and what people can do. Now, the young lady in the picture that you see, who is playing wheelchair basketball, is a young woman called Sophie Carrigal. And at the age of 16, she was like many other young girls, and just happy, enjoying life, had just taken her General Certificate of Education, which is taken at the age of 16 in England. She went on a family holiday to the United States, was a passenger in a car, the only person who was wearing her seatbelt, and she had, the car was involved in a terrible collision, and she was found not really breathing, having very little pulse, had multiple operations. Her life was saved, but it was discovered that her spinal cord had been severed. And so she is now paralyzed from the waist down. Well, here she is when she was a student at the university 4 years ago. She studied psychology, in which I'm delighted to say she got a first-class honors degree, which she earned. But she also became, during that period, the captain of the Great Britain women's basketball team, wheelchair basketball team. And she's playing basketball in the University of Worcester Arena. The university, like every other of the 130 universities in Britain, has a sports hall. But unlike any other university, in fact, any other institution in the whole of Britain, our sports hall was purpose designed to include the wheelchair athlete, which simply means that the courts are a little bit longer because it takes the same dimension for playing, but the runoff is a bit more because it takes you a little longer to stop in a wheelchair than it does when you can use your legs. And the changing rooms are bigger. And so here you have the picture of this facility, which is alive with children, but which can also include the wheelchair athlete. And inclusion has other dimensions as well, which we have become concerned about. And the ability to help children and young people, but also adults who have dyslexia. The print appears to dance in front of them when they read because they can't hold their focus and their eyes. And people would say, you're stupid because you can't read. But actually, if you've ever tried to read, perhaps through a distorting mirror, and the picture and the print seems to move up and down, you see how difficult it is. And it's amazing that people can read at all, let alone slowly. So we've become concerned with overcoming this and with creating opportunity for people. And here is a short film about one of our students who was a little bit older when he came to us, and what it means to him to become a person with a university degree who can now use a computer and use words in his daily life and occupation and profession. So we'll just perhaps dim the lights now and play a film. I'm always nervous of having a film with such distinguished people here. But the good thing is it only lasts 1 minute and 19 seconds. On a daily basis, he encourages young people to make more of themselves physically, but he always says the most important thing is character, and how it's not what happens to you in life, but how you react it, which Do you react to it, which defines you as a person? And of course, he's a very inspirational figure, and we're delighted that he's very recently been elected to be a governor of the university as well. Coming from a background in which people expected that his university would be prison, in which he would serve one long sentence after another. But he's broken free from that, and the university, we're delighted to be able to help. Now, I know that we have many political as well as educational leaders here. And one of the other aspects of universities is that they can play a very important role, not only in education, in science and knowledge, but they can play and in reaching out to the community in which they're based, but also that they can be an important, as I put it here, engine of regeneration physically for a city if they're based in a city. And I just want to introduce you to a little of what the University of Worcester has done. Now, the building that you see here, the major building, is actually the former building of the Worcester Royal Infirmary, which was a large hospital for its time, built in 1775, and it's where the British Medical Association was founded in 1832. And I know we have a number of distinguished medical doctors here today. The British Medical Association, founded by Sir Charles Hastings in 1832 in this building, and we still have the boardroom and original things there. The university has also made a contribution with other buildings, and down at the bottom we have, for instance, created a mock law court, and you can see that there. This is the Worcester Royal Infirmary in 2005, and if you look carefully, it had been abandoned. You can see rubble in front of the buildings. You can see that there were surgical blocks which had become redundant, and I can assure you that everything in it which could be stolen had been stolen by the time the university got it, and that it was used as a centre for all sorts of nefarious and criminal activities. This is the Worcester Royal Infirmary, our city campus today. You can see that this was taken recently because, of course, the photograph was taken by a drone. That's how you get this type of photography. We have new halls of residence on the right, actually the marquee in the center that you see is the marquee for our annual Children's Festival of Storytelling and Poetry. And the doctor's residence has been refurbished for offices, and the Royal Infirmary building itself has been fully refurbished and provides a home for our business school. So suddenly it's transformed into, instead of a derelict site, an engine of opportunity. And we've done something else in Worcester. We've created a new library, which I'll say something about. But this was the dust cart depot in about 2008. Now, this site actually was very rich archaeologically, because it turned out that it had been a rubbish dump and a place for conducting industrial activity for over 2,000 years, because on it we found an oven which the Romans used for smelting iron 2,000 years ago. We also found slippers which were worn by somebody in around 1400 AD, and the castings of some bells of a church, which we know precisely were put in 1465, because we know when the bells were put in, and we found the iron castings. So it was, for many hundreds of years, the dust cart depot, and it was on the wrong side of the town ditch, which tells you everything you need to know. This is it today, the same site with the Hive Library. Now, the Hive Library is not built in gold. I know it looks as if it's built in gold. It's actually a very inert copper alloy, which is a very good building material, relatively inexpensive, which lasts a long time. And it's the first university and public library in Britain, and actually it's the first integrated university and public library in the whole of Europe. And this means that not only is it a wonderful facility for our university students and staff, but it's open from 8:30 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, virtually every day of the year. It closes for Christmas and a few bank holidays, but otherwise it's open. And that means that in August, and I was talking with some colleagues earlier, and I said, you know what university libraries are like in August, certainly in England, which is there's nobody in them. If you died between the book stacks, it would be some weeks before you were found. Nobody would come and rescue you. They're busy in term time, but they're very quiet, particularly in the long summer vacation. If you come to the Hive Library in August, it's wonderful. It's full of children in particular. It has a children's library at its heart. It's full of parents and grandparents, citizens of all ages, reading, studying, enjoying themselves. It's a center of activity. And in the first year that we opened the Hive, teenage readership increased by 356% in terms of borrowing. And the number of people joining the public library increased 600% in the first year, and it's stabilized now 3 times greater than it used to be every year. And it's been open for 6 years. So it's become a true engine of educational opportunity. This is one of our children's laureates, Michael Rosen, who's appearing at the Hive. You can see just behind him, it's what we call the cheese wall, which is a wonderful place for children to climb into and read books. And there are little spaces there where books are hidden, and then the children can open it and find a book or something else which is interesting and educational and use. And the Hive was interesting enough that it attracted, I'm delighted to say, this lady who is reasonably well known, and her husband, who is also well known, to come to open the library in 2012. And we were delighted that during her Jubilee year, Her Majesty the Queen came to open the library in 2012. And so the library has become inclusive at heart, and this lady, when this picture was taken, was our Secretary of State for Education. And the Hive is a great leveler, and you'll notice that she's straight away down to the same level as the children. She's very high as our Secretary of State for Education. She's a delightful colleague, Nikki Morgan, and here she is. And these children are all actually representatives of their class. They're in primary school, but there's a democracy, and they are all elected, and they're learning how to participate. And so, of course, the Secretary of State wanted to come. This gives you a sensation of the library. And here's a Minister for Schools, and you can see there's a theme here. If you come, and we hope very much that you'll all come and visit, you'll have to get down on the floor with the children and realize that we're all human beings learning together. And this is at the heart of this center, this wonderful idea of inclusion. And the university is deeply committed to art. We were committed to education. We have some wonderful science at the university. But this man here is now a visiting professor of ours. He was on the staff for many years, Pete Grobler. And he is our mayor with an exhibition of postcards which illustrationists from around the world have sent to us about the theme of migration and what it means to them. And the world's leading illustrators have all created and given a postcard, and we've made an exhibition of it. And this is one of Pete's famous works. He's illustrated Aesop's Fables, which of course a wonderful historic set of fables. Now, the Hive also gives us the opportunity to reach out in other ways in inclusion, and this is all about the inclusive ethos. And a few years ago, we had, as one of our early exhibitions in the Hive, an exhibition from an organization here in India, based in Chennai, called Tara Books. And Tara produces books which are made by hand, a number of them, as part of their series, and they're books for children who cannot see. And so the book, how can you have a book which you can't see? Well, obviously by touch. And so the heat of the sun here in India, pretty hot most of the time, is represented by sandpaper, rough paper. And I've seen films of children being introduced to these books in the first time, and literally the children are so excited to find this story that they start licking the book with their tongue to get the sensation. And because their imagination is made alive by this wonderful story, which they can't read, but they can experience by touch. And we were introduced to this marvelous work by a wonderful group of educationalists based in Chennai. Now, how is it possible to come to Mumbai and not talk about cricket? I mean, for people of my generation, Sunil Gavaskar, poetry on the cricket pitch, when in his pomp and batting. And of course, more recently, the great Sachin Tendulkar. It's a shame that Donald Bradman wasn't alive at the same time. We could have seen who was the greatest batsman ever. But we'll know. So how is it possible? Well, this is the cricket ground at Worcester, which is considered by many to be the epitome of English cricket because of this view. There's the cricket ground, a first-class match taking place, and there is Worcester Cathedral in the background. What is perhaps not so well known is that Basil d'Oliveira played his professional career at Worcestershire County Cricket Club, as well as playing for England. And of course, you will all know that it was the refusal of the South African government to accept Basil d'Oliveira because of his colour, which led to the sporting boycott of South Africa, and which led to so much, and which of course your country played such a wonderful role in such a progressive and intelligent and determined way. And Basil, whose son I've played cricket with and actually faced my last ball against him. Sadly, he passed away a few years ago. And his grandson plays for Worcestershire today. But also, perhaps what is not well known, is that Worcestershire is the first county cricket club in England, first-class club, to have an England player captain it who was actually born in India. And this is Vikram Solanki, who went on to be chair of the Professional Cricketers Association, born in Udaipur, and the first Indian to be the captain of an English county cricket club. Now here's the same picture, the same cricket being played, but if you look at the picture on the right hand, you'll notice if you look carefully at this man who's about to catch the ball, that he's only got one arm. And this is a picture that was taken this summer, just gone. It's the first triangular international tournament to take place in England between England, Bangladesh, and Pakistan on physical disability cricket. And I wanted to introduce you to something that we're working on now, because I told you that the arena was the first facility in England to be purpose designed to include the wheelchair athlete, which is astonishing when you think of the thousands of sports halls which have been created. Well, we're working at a project at the moment with the England Cricket Board to create the world's first inclusive cricket centre, in which people who are blind will also be able to practice alongside, albeit divided by a wall, when they're in the nets, alongside people who are sighted, people who are first-class cricketers, children, boys, women, men and girls, who will all be there together using the same changing rooms, having the same pleasure and joy. And this is a picture of the teams at the dinner that we hosted for them, just an idea. And of course, you will know, I mean, here we have blind cricket being played, which of course is played by hearing and with a soft ball, and you have to wear a blindfold so that everybody has the same level of impairment. And of course, India are the holders of the Blind Cricket World Cup, and The estimates vary greatly, but it is estimated that there may be up to 1 million children who have a visual impairment here in India. And of course, with cricket being such a great national popular sport, I know that you will want the children, whether they have a visual impairment or not, to be able to enjoy. And this is where we're going to build it. That's the arena, and we've carefully bought some land at the back and to the side, and in 2 years' time I hope that this will be filled up with a new centre for cricket. We signed off the designs for it, the commission for the architect 10 days ago. Now this brings me to the main item, which is Dr. Swaroop Sampat Rawal. And here is Swaroop teaching characteristically this theme of getting down onto the same level. Swaroop has led us all to this. And here you see a picture of Swaroop with an extra who has been hired for the day, you can see. And she's actually the first person in the history of the university to have a double, to be a double doctorate. Because she earned her PhD 10 years ago with a wonderful thesis on all sorts of aspects of inclusive education. And of course, she's been doing great work, which you know a great deal about, and which we're going to learn more about today, I'm sure. And we were delighted to give her an honorary degree just a few weeks ago. And this is a picture in the Hive, absolutely. And here is Swaroop addressing the 2,000 people at Worcester Cathedral, and in her honorary doctoral robes. And we've got a fancy gown to have some more pictures later. I feel sure that the combination of Swaroop and the fancy gown will attract photography in a great deal. And I'll try to be an extra and do my best. And I brought that gown along as well. And I just want to say that having made this bridge to the work that we're doing with Swaroop, I've got my colleagues here, and Jordan, who's head of education, Pinky Jane, who plays such an important role in our School of Education at the university, right. Very good. Right. Well, the minister has timed his arrival brilliantly. Sir, it's a pleasure and an honor to meet you. And also, I mean, I can see that not only are you doing great work, but you are destined for great things, because to make an entry just like that, as I'm about to come to the main point that I was trying to make in my speech, is fantastic. So thank you, sir. And the point that I was going to make is we are launching this diploma today, which Swaroop and colleagues, Anne, Pinky and others have been working on in education, which is to help teachers learn how to teach using drama and other ways, so that children learn critical life skills. And we go back to the idea of character and learning to be resilient in a rather difficult and changing modern world. We think of the resilience that Mark Scriven had to show to be able to win all the records and win all the matches that he had to win, and to live his life when his father had hit him so hard at the age of 10 that he lost his sight and had abused him for so many years. And yet he's managed to go on and do such positive work now. And so Swaroop has made a short film, or a short film has been made featuring Swaroop, which I just want to play to you now, and that will really be the introduction to the main course, which is to listen to Swaroop and how she is going to help work with us all to further develop inclusion, so important in our modern world. So let's have the film with Swaroop now, and we'll just dim the lights a little, and there we go. beginnings of a bridge towards Swaroop. I'm just going to just a very few brief words to you and then introduce another film, Pinky.
First of all, allow me to express my deepest gratitude for this honor the University of Worcester has bestowed on me. I accept it joyfully for myself and on the behalf of the teachers and the children I have worked with since the last 15 years. At the same time, I'm delighted to share these moments with all of you who have gathered here and invited by us. For you are friends, some long-standing and some new. There is nothing on earth that is more prized than true friendship, and I'm grateful for the academic friendship that transcends borders and distances, for the friendship that allows us to jointly explore the world in which we live, and for the friendship which allows us to share our successes. There are a few people I would like to thank before I continue my speech, and two people who are very dear to me who are not here, but celebrated with me in the Worcester Cathedral, my Director of Studies, Dr. Philip Chamber, and my external examiner, Dr. Jack Whitehead. I also acknowledge the love and support of my family, without whom I would have never achieved what I have. Thank you, Mom. Paresh, Anirudh, Aditya, Hema, my whole family. I want to specially thank the University of Worcester for this important distinction. It's a great honor for many reasons, because it was at Worcester that I started my journey as a teacher. I still remember the day I went there. It was a Sunday, and the university was absolutely empty. Not totally. The security was there, but I was sitting there on the steps looking at the rolling Malvern hills and thinking, this is home. It was here that I learned a lot. It was here that I learned the importance of education. Education is the point at which we decide whether we love the world enough to assume responsibility for it, and by the same token save it from ruin, which except for renewal, except for building of capacity to question, to explore, to view the world from others' standpoint, it would be inevitable. Education, too, is when we decide whether we love our children enough not to expel them from our world and leave them abandoned. It was at Worcester that I learned about the equality of opportunity, the capacity to become different. I learned that there's a lot of reviewing required, using of imagination, and taking of responsibility. When I went back home, I felt very alone. I do not wish to imply nobody cared, but I just want to say that in spite of the good intentions of the academics and ministries, children were actually traumatized by what we call education in modern India. East looks west and west looks east, and yet there's a learning crisis in global education. In spite of education for all, no child left behind, every student succeeds act, Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, millions of children world over still can't read, write, and do basic maths. This learning crisis, instead of shortening the social gap, is increasing it. Children from economically vulnerable backgrounds, social minorities, the girl child, who are already disadvantaged by their circumstances, reach adulthood lacking in the most basic life skills. Somebody had to act. And I have a very simple mantra, and that is, if not me, then who? My grandmother used to tell me the story about one day the earth was about to experience darkness for the first time. And the people began to panic, and they said, the sun will set and darkness will cover everything. What will happen to us? Darkness became arrogant and wanted to show its might. It set its foot on earth and people began to hide. But in one little hut, very far away in a corner, one little lamp raised its head and proclaimed, "I challenge you, darkness. I will be the light for the people. If nothing else, I won't allow you to settle around me. I will establish light around me." Watching this, the other lamps in every hut in the world rose, and the world watched in amazement. These little lamps stopped darkness from expanding. I believe, understanding our motivation, we apply a way to limit or to liberate. Social imagination, for me, is liberation. Imagination is what allows for empathy, for understanding other people's feelings, to begin a new interaction with the world. Social imagination allows us to envision life different from the one which we live. There is one beautiful story I read while I was doing my research. It's about a little boy and his father. They got into the train, a little like our local trains, and there was absolutely no place in there. Somehow the father got the little kid to sit down, gave him a paper and a pen, and said, "Draw." This little kid looked around, and after a moment, he started drawing. And after a bit, the father asked him, "What are you drawing?" So he says, "Dad, I'm drawing you sitting in the train next to me." So the father said, "There is no place on this train." So he says, "Not this train, the train in my drawing. In my train, there is a place for everyone to sit."
But looking after the way Swaroop ji is working, I think it has proved it is the way Swaroop ji has found to appreciating such type of training of trainers, which is most may think. But he has to pass that through the teachers, and the teacher is a crucial in each and every way. And I think in a country like India, we have mass education, so it is too difficult students, but in 2009, from right to education, we have adopted inclusive education, which was not here. Open board in Maharashtra, where the student need not go to day-to-day school, but he can be at par with other students, as there is a state board, other students, because number of parents of the special kids approached us